Well, this looks a bit different. Hello and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be ranking every Pokemon mainline series game. As you can probably tell if you're a returning viewer, some things have changed. I've got a different camera angle and I have massive glasses. Alright, so we're going to be going in order from release date. This is going to be a subjective tier list, it's not going to be an objective tier list at all. I'm not going to be sitting here ranking them in terms of quality. It's going to be how I feel about the games and how I personally think they rank in the franchise. The bottom tier is the weakest in the series. The weakest in the series is based on a number of things, including my personal opinion of the games, how I feel like they've aged, and stuff like that. In the meh tier, it's obviously the games that I'm not the biggest fan of, but they obviously have more merit than being in the weakest section of the series. In the decent tier, we have games in the mainline series who just are okay. Think of great as like the middle tier, because I do think there's more good games than bad games in the Pokemon franchise, so that's a bit the middle ground. We have almost perfect, which is the games that just miss out on being that top tier. They're way better than the games that are in great, but they just don't hit the heights of our top tier, which is the peak of the franchise in my personal opinion. Alright, to kick us off, we have Generation 1, which were the first Pokemon games that I ever played. And obviously the first games that were ever released. You know, when I first played these games, even a number of years after they came out, they were still groundbreaking for the time because of, you know, how innovative and unique they were from anything else that had ever came out. That being said, I do think that the release date is an issue with these games. These are some really old games. They're dated to a point where there's so many technical issues with them. I don't think they can go in any tier above the weakest in the series. I don't think it's necessarily because they're bad games now. You can definitely go back and play them and enjoy them, but there's been, what, 2 Kanto remakes since, and as you'll see, I think most people should play them instead of the original games. For Pokemon Yellow, I think it's about the same. Whilst Pokemon Yellow is better than Red and Blue in a lot of ways, it still is plagued by the fact that it is a very old game. In a lot of tier lists, the Generation 2 games get a lot of love, and I mean the original Generation 2 games, and I do think it's based on a lot of nostalgia. In my personal opinion, I also think they're in the weakest in the series category. They're just outdated, outclassed by their remakes, and whilst I do think they are a step up from Generation 1, it is not an almighty leap. What I will say is, I think Pokemon Crystal is a significant jump up from Red, Blue, Yellow, Silver, and Gold. I would put Crystal above the other 5, just based on how I think it's aged. I think it's aged better than the other 5. Again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm disrespecting these games. Generation 1, for a long time, were some of my favourite games, but I have to be realistic, and I don't really want to go back and play them in comparison to the other games that have came out since, especially the remakes. Now we move on to Generation 3, and we start off with Ruby and Sapphire. And I've got to be honest, I think Ruby and Sapphire are in the great tier. I think they are very solid. I think they're enjoyable. I think they do get outclassed by Emerald, but I think you can go and play Ruby and Sapphire and have a great time because they are different to an extent. This was obviously our first foray into the fully colored Pokemon games. I think a lot of the Pokemon that were introduced into the Hoenn games were very good too. And I would say Ruby and Sapphire, yeah, I think they're very solid games. Next up, we have just a line of goated games, I can't lie. I do not see many games in here that are going to go below the top 2 tiers. Starting off with potentially the most played Pokemon games on YouTube. Just based on ROM hacks, fan games, and the games themselves, and the replayability of them. We have Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, in my opinion, these are one of the big peaks of Pokemon. The level of quality that was shown in these games was fantastic, and for me, I don't care if you hate Kanto because it's been overdone. These games are absolute classics. I genuinely don't have any issues with Fire Red and Leaf Green. I've played through Fire Red and Leaf Green so many times with randomized Nuzlockes, just normal Nuzlockes. As I say, fan games, ROM hacks, a lot of them are based off of either Emerald or Fire Red and Leaf Green. Speaking of Emerald, yeah, I mean, I've just said why I think Fire Red and Leaf Green are top tier. And the same has to apply for Emerald. Emerald was, you know, around the time where I was fully invested into Pokemon. As I say, I started off with Generation 1, but Generation 3 is what really got me into Pokemon to an extent where it was a lifetime thing. You know, I was so into the anime at this point. I loved everything about the Gen 3 anime. Then we move on. I had so much merchandise. This was at a point where Pokemon merchandise was just, they were getting everything. Like, I'm pretty sure there was Pokemon McDonald's toys for Generation 3. You had, one of my favorites, you had disc things. I can't remember what they're called, but they were like plastic discs that you would stack on top of each other and you'd throw them and try and knock down the tower. Incredible. What utter garbage merchandise this was, but the amount of merchandise was so overpowering that it made everyone love Pokemon at the time, I feel. Generation 4, and we start off with Diamond and Pearl. I'm struggling with where to put Diamond and Pearl because they are very outclassed by Platinum. Don't play Diamond and Pearl if you're going to play Gen 4. Just play Platinum. It's just a way better game in every way. Diamond and Pearl is very slow. And this is a criticism that I see a lot of people give. I know I said I was going to try and keep nostalgia out of this, but I remember every second of my first playthrough of Gen 4. I love Gen 4 so much, and it's going to hurt me a lot to do this. Which is silly, because I also love Ruby and Sapphire, but I'm going to have to put Diamond and Pearl in Great. I would love to put them above that, but I can't. I would love to be able to put Diamond and Pearl in Almost Perfect, but I don't think they could be, just based on how slow they are and just how much of an upgrade Platinum actually is. And speaking of Platinum, I gotta be honest, we've got another S in here, and this is some people are gonna call this a normie tier list, I feel like, but yeah, I think Platinum is one of, if not the best Pokemon games we've ever had. Gen 4 hit it out the bag with a lot of things. The story, wow. The story is great. One of the big things, the legendaries. We had so many legendaries, but I'm pretty sure all of them are actually just quality legendaries, other than that one. They were also the last games before the sort of remake. They were the last games in the original series, a lot of people would say, because Gen 5 was like a soft remake. Yeah, I think Gen 4 as a whole, fantastic, but as I say, the peak of Gen 4 has got to be Platinum. Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Whew. As you may have seen with my Scarlet and Violet Pokemon tier list, I am a very positive Pokemon fan. I gotta be honest, I feel like I'm so top heavy. Whew. Heart Gold and Soul Silver is up there in the peak of Pokemon. I've got to be honest. I'm looking at the tier list and I'm just like, yeah, this is right. This is correct so far. There's no contention here, is there? Are people going to contend for this? I know for a fact people are going to be like, Gen 2, the original Gen 2s, why are they all the way down there? Again, come on, get with the times. Nostalgia's killing you, bro. Gen 2 as a region for me is actually really good. I don't think there's anyone that's in the middle on Gen 2. I genuinely think it's either people that love Gen 2 and overrate it, or there's people that hate Gen 2 and overhate it. I hardly ever see people that are just like, yeah, Gen 2 is really good. Gen 2 is decent. Gen 2 is okay. Gen 2 is great. I hardly ever see that. I just hear people say Gen 2 is the best Pokemon games of all time. Heart Gold and Soul Silver is the pinnacle of Pokemon. Pokemon Crystal, best Pokemon game I've ever played. And there's the people that are like, Heart Gold and Soul Silver is so overrated. This game sucks. Look at all these flaws with it, and it's like such minor little details. At the end of the day, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are fantastic. I can't lie. The 6 Pokemon games that are up there right now, all of them, if anyone said that these were their favorite games, I wouldn't have an issue. Oh, here we go. An actual contentious one in a lot of ways. Gen 5. For me, is this going to be very contentious? I don't think so. I think Gen 5 is absolutely fantastic. How could I be so silly in my youth as to not like Gen 5? I feel like this is a common story for people my age. I think a lot of people that are around the same age as me had a similar opinion on Gen 5 and have a very similar character arc. I enjoyed Gen 5 a little bit at the time, but I didn't feel the same way I did about the previous Pokemon games. There was something off with them. So I took a break from Pokemon after Gen 5. The original Black and White, that is. Because I didn't actually play Black 2 and White 2 until, I want to say, about 6 years ago. So about 2017 time. Yeah, because of the break that I took from Black and White, I didn't play Pokemon until X and Y came out. Which, again, I think is the story for a lot of people, especially around my age. Gen 5 was just very different, and I don't think I was quite ready for it. It was just a very different time where I was just changing a lot as a person, and actually like growing up. So yeah, I don't think it was my time for Black and White. Black and White and Black 2, White 2 are some of the best Pokemon games of all time. I mean, the stories, the graphics, the sprites, oh my god, the sprites are so fantastic. The music, the region as a whole, I don't care what you think about some of the Pokedex. As a whole, I think the Unova Pokedex is fantastic. I think there's so many designs in there that are so fucking good. I gotta be honest, I like the ice cream. The ice cream's good. Vanillix is good. Vanillish is good. Vanillite's good. I don't care. I like them. So yeah, I'm gonna be putting Black and White and Black 2, White 2 up into that peak territory. X and Y as games are yeah. They're pretty bottom tier, I can't lie. I think X and Y, I've got to put them in the meh tier. If we're talking about just overall, objectively, I feel like they might be the worst Pokemon games in the series. Are these the most forgettable Pokemon games of all time? I think people would struggle to name the whole Kalos dex in comparison to the rest of the region's dexes, which is crazy, because Kalos has the smallest Pokedex, I'm pretty sure. It was our first jump into 3D Pokemon, which was a rocky one. Looking back on it, it was rough. At the time, really, really cool. At the time, really, really nice. It was enjoyable. I loved it. It was really short, actually. I finished the game very quickly. There's a big drop in how highly you rate X and Y as soon as Oras comes out. And even Sun and Moon. Like, there's such a massive drop-off in your opinion of those games. Do I think they're slightly overhated? I would say so. I don't think they're awful games. Just to clarify, I don't think there's a bad Pokemon game. I just think they're kind of meh. I personally enjoyed the games at the time, but as I say, as they've aged very shortly after, like even a year after, the games just didn't really stand the test of time at all. There was no replayability factor to them. The only thing is, there was slight replayability because of how short and easy the game was, but realistically, it wasn't an enjoyable replay. I think Oras was actually a really, really decent time for the Pokemon franchise. The hype season for Oras was incredible. If you didn't experience the hype season for Oras, you really did miss out, because after Oras we didn't really get fake leaks as much. A lot of the leaks we've gotten since Oras have been genuine leaks, whereas Oras, we were getting so many fake leaks. X and Y, so many fake leaks. But after Oras, I just feel like we weren't getting that many fake leaks. There was so much hype just because of how beloved Gen 3 is to a lot of people, and so a lot of people were just expecting so many Pokemon to get their Mega Evolutions. Obviously, some Pokemon that should have got Mega Evolutions didn't. Shout out Milotic, shout out Flygon, the boy. Overall, I would say they're pretty good. Now, my only thing is, I would rather play Emerald than Oras. I just find Emerald to be a more enjoyable experience than Oras. But again, I think it's personal preference to a degree. This might be a bit of a hot take, but I actually think the 3DS era of Pokemon was probably the weakest we've ever had. A lot of people might say like, oh, the Switch era, because some people will look at like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and even Sword and Shield to an extent and be like, they're just mid. But I disagree. I think the 3DS probably had the weakest games just overall. I also just don't like playing games on the 3DS. After the first like year or two of the 3DS's lifespan, I was kind of done with it. I just think the 3DS had so many problems, and it just wasn't a very enjoyable experience. I need to give some serious context to Gen 7 here, because when I rank these things, you guys are going to be like, that just doesn't make any sense. But with the context, it will. The original Sun and Moon Oh, when I played them, I was so in love. I loved every single member of my team. You know, the story was fantastic as well. It was one of those things where I was just so invested in the game as a whole. Now, the issues with the original Sun and Moon is, you know, it was very long. There was a lot of, like, really slow dialogue. And obviously, because it's on the 3DS, it was quite slow as well. I'm going to struggle to not put it in the second or third tier because of how I felt about the games when I first played them. When we've got that first trailer, oh my god. The smile on my face when I watched that first trailer, I was so excited for Sun and Moon. And do I think, looking back on them, they aren't as fantastic as I once thought? Yes. I think for the first time in the franchise, these games had little to no replay value for me. So I said for X and Y that I didn't want to replay them. But that was just, it wasn't even because there was no replay value. It was just because of just how easy it was. There was no real fun unless you were modding the game or doing like a challenge Nuzlocke or something. For Sun and Moon, the games were just so long-winded at the start that I just felt like it would be a slog to try and get through them again. For me, I personally rank replayability of Pokemon games very, very high on terms of features that matter to me. I do think there's a large portion of Pokemon fans that don't play the Pokemon games to replay them. But for me, number one most important thing for Pokemon games is the Pokemon. That's what matters to me most. And somewhere just below that has got to be replayability. And those two mesh well with each other because I want to use different Pokemon with each playthrough. And that's why randomized Nuzlocke matter to me. And that's why I love them so much, because I get to use Pokemon I would never think of using before. I did a black and white Nuzlocke where I had a Delcat as a starter. Like, who would ever use a Delcat in black and white? Exactly, no one, but you know. It's just one of those things where the Pokemon and the replayability matter so much to me. So Sun and Moon is disappointing in that aspect, and as I say, it's very slow to begin with. But I have to put them in great at least. Like, I do think they're great. We have some real controversy with this one. Remember what I said about the replay factor of Sun and Moon? Well, that's going to matter a lot to how I feel about Ultra Sun and Moon, and how I still feel about it now. Ultra Sun and Moon, if you don't know, came out a year after Sun and Moon. I'm pretty sure for a lot of people, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon washes Sun and Moon. I have personal bias against Ultra Sun and Moon because of the reason I talked about earlier with the replayability of Sun and Moon. A year afterwards, I bought Ultra Sun and Moon, and I was so bored because I had played through this game before. I didn't think it would be so similar to begin with, which is on me, obviously. But I'm a Pokemon fan. I'm not going to not get a Pokemon game on release. That's just me. I love Pokemon and I always will. They didn't really fix how slow the game felt to start. And so, I gotta be honest, I never finished Ultra Sun and Moon. I've never finished Ultra Sun and Moon. Which, I mean, a lot of people are going to be like, well, you can't speak on those games. But again, this is just my personal thing. I'm not saying Ultra Sun and Moon are bad games. I can recognize that they're better than Sun and Moon, technically, and like content-wise and stuff like that. But for me personally, Ultra Sun and Moon are meh, because I could not get through them. I couldn't get through them because of the release timing of them. They came out so soon after Sun and Moon, and they didn't change anything up that I played through. They didn't change anything up really. It was very minimal things. And you can say, down the line in the story, everything changes. Like, that's cool. But you expect me to go through and play hours of this content that's the exact same a year after, when I didn't want to play the games again because of how little replayability I felt like Sun and Moon had. The reason I like Sun and Moon so much is because of the story. I didn't want to play through Sun and Moon again. So I thought maybe Ultra Sun and Moon, maybe foolishly, would change up the formula a little bit and maybe make the games feel a bit faster, but it didn't do that. I do think Blacephalon is a pretty cool addition, and Naganadel, but yeah, that's about it really. This is just controversial alley right now. You know, I go from Sun and Moon to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I'll add a little bit of context, I'll give you a little bit of the story. Let's Go was announced, and I wasn't excited as much. I was actually considering skipping these games up until a week before their release. I wasn't going to get them. And then a week before the release, something in me changed. I saw how amazing the Pokemon overworld animations looked when the Pokemon's following you behind. And the nostalgia in me took over, and I had to go back to Kanto. So I bought Let's Go Pikachu, and then it came out and I played it. I gotta be honest, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are some of my favorite games of all time. People are not gonna like this. People are not gonna like it. Can I see that it's Kanto again? Yeah. Is that why I like them? Potentially. I didn't want the catching feature from Pokemon Go in a Pokemon main series game. But when you play it, like if you haven't played Let's Go and you think the games are like mid, if you're on the fence or anything, or you just want to learn more about them or you want to experience it, please play them, because the way they feel is way different from how they look. The way that you get shinies as well, where it's a catch chain and is very easy to do, was very good for the dopamine. The graphics, I think Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had the perfect graphics for Pokemon in a 3D environment. It had the cartoon charm, and it also had the classic Pokemon anime aesthetic, but it also looked visually impressive, and the art style was very nice. It didn't feel bland or kind of just boring, which I do think to an extent future Pokemon 3D games had. So yeah, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee for me are some of my favorite games. And again, I have to reiterate, this is not an objective list at all. I don't think objectively Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are some of the best games. I do think they're very underrated though. Again, I just controversial alley, Sword and Shield. I really loved them when they first came out. I really enjoyed Sword and Shield, and I do think they get a little bit too much hate. I think they're pretty good games. I do see that there's a lot of flaws with them, like the story isn't really there. I gotta be honest, maybe I'm just on like happy pills or something, but I think Sword and Shield are great games. I'm just thinking back to my original playthrough of Sword and Shield and just how fun it was. I'm obviously from Scotland, so I felt very represented. You know what? I shouldn't tell this story online, because you guys are going to make fun of me. I don't care though. You know the wild area theme with the bagpipes? I fucking cried when I heard it. I fucking cried when I heard the bagpipes come on in a Pokemon game. Yes, I did. Because I felt so happy that finally we had a region that was based on the place I live. I think Sword and Shield are pretty good. Oh, I'm gonna have to move down again. I'm just slowly moving down the ladder and moving down in your estimations too. Oh, let's get these shit games out of the way, please. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, just immediately in the fucking trash tier. Just, if we could... Okay, if I was to add another tier, they would be the bottom. These are the worst Pokemon games that have ever been released. They are lazy. They are so buggy for no reason. I don't want to speak about them because it's just... They're just shit. Let's talk about Legends Arceus. Fantastic game. Our first our first foray into sort of like open world Pokemon, because Sword and Shield had the wild area, but it wasn't an open world game. Legends Arceus was like open world. I saw a lot of people saying that the open world was similar to like how some Monster Hunter games are. I can't say anything to that. I'm not a Monster Hunter expert. I only played them when I was a kid on the DS, so use that info with what you will. But yeah, Legends Arceus, so different. The reveal was incredible too. The first trailer, I can't believe they had the balls to show those choppy ass frame rates of Chimecho. The fact that is my main takeaway of the first trailer. That is not good. Don't do that again, please. But no, God, Legends Arceus. I also just think, I think Legends Arceus was like one of the games where like Pokemon content creation just got taken to another level. You know, I don't know if you guys know them, but there's channels like Shiny Catherine. So yeah, okay, here we go. Here's a perfect example of what I mean. Legends Arceus kind of took the Pokemon content creation to another level. These are some of the content creators that I know kind of blew up or started during Legends Arceus, and they blew up with the shiny hunting because of how nice it felt to shiny hunt. So you can see Super Potion is the channel I'm on, but I'm looking mainly at the collab video with Shiny Catherine and Nokimon. Three names that have kind of just like exceeded expectations for Pokemon content in a lot of ways. In terms of like the new age stuff, the editing on their videos and stuff is very, very top tier. And yeah, they kind of blew up with Legends Arceus, I feel. So yeah, Legends Arceus gave us like a fantastic game, and as I say, it kind of propped up content creation as well because of how different the games were. Yeah, I think Legends Arceus again has got to be in the peak section for me. It's a unique game, you know, the lore in it, the gameplay itself, fantastic, genuinely top tier. I was so excited for Legends Arceus' release, even more so after those abominations that came out before it. Again, this is just my subjective opinion as we move on to the final games so far in the series. Now, I did release a video that you guys may have watched, and it was a sort of review of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and it went through how I felt about the games on release. I recorded it like about a week or so after the games first released. All the different stories and all the different characters we met, fantastic. I think I said it in my review, and I think I said it in my review, and I definitely said it in my tier list of the Paldean Pokemon that you should check out as well. That this had one of the most unique Pokedexes of all time. I do think the region overall was a bit bland in terms of just how it looks. There wasn't as many unique places, but as I said in my review, I do think that that's just because it's their first real open world Pokemon game. Because they're the newest games as well, I think it's difficult to put them like either really high or really low, because you need to kind of give it time. I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet I would still put in the peak, even if you take away the fact that they're the newest games, just because they, you know, upped the Pokemon franchise again in terms of from a game standpoint. But I'm gonna have to put them in almost perfect, because I do think they are almost perfect. There is just a lot of performance issues that hit that game and keep it from being the top notch and the top dog of the Pokemon franchise. Bugs are just insane. Performance issues, you know, just like so many bugs that just take away from the experience, that even if you are the biggest Pokemon fan or the biggest Pokemon content creator, I just think it's so disingenuous to say that you've not experienced the bugs or they didn't impact your gameplay as much as other people did. Like, sure, you can have the opinion that you enjoyed the game still, but to an extent they definitely did impair your gameplay. Or you're just the luckiest person alive. Like, the amount of bugs that people were hit with was insane. I didn't really have any crazy bugs, but there was bugs and stuttering that did take away from the enjoyment. And as I've shown here, and as I've said multiple times, I'm one of the most positive Pokemon fans that there is. Like, I am very open-minded to Pokemon's direction, no matter how they take it. And still, Scarlet and Violet, I can't give them a pass on it, man. I just can't give them a pass on this one. Like, if Sword and Shield was really buggy, I could kind of give that a pass and I wouldn't rank them down for it, because it was their first new generation on the Switch. There's no excuse for this now. There's no excuse for release timings. There's no excuse for any of it. I genuinely struggle to find any sense out of the people that think that Pokemon games should be released once a year, or as what happened in 2022, twice a year. In what world does that make sense? Even if Pokemon is the biggest franchise, it doesn't matter. There should be time scales that make sense for releasing games. And yearly Pokemon games don't make sense. A lot of the quality that we've seen from past Pokemon games has been lost because of yearly releases. I think it's really disingenuous to just try and say that Game Freak don't know how to make the games anymore. Maybe if they had time to make the games, that wouldn't happen. Like, there wouldn't be these bugs. You're telling me with 6 months more time, Scarlet and Violet are not fantastic games and they don't have as many bugs as they do? I think some of the arguments against, you know, the reasons why Pokemon games might have dropped quality for some people are just a bit crazy. Like, let's be real, Game Freak know what they're doing. They're very talented. And I can't say who makes the release dates, but whoever's doing it, get a grip, because there's only so long that you can be the big dog, right? And if you keep releasing stuff like this over and over again, people will stop buying it. Even the biggest Pokemon fans will not settle for what you gave us twice in a row. So this is me saying, if another game comes out that's buggy, like Scarlet and Violet, no matter how good the story is, no matter how good the Pokemon are, I genuinely think the pushback will be huge. Scarlet and Violet had so many new features that I think a lot of people could kind of look over some of the bugs. I don't see that happening again. I'm going to be putting Scarlet and Violet in Almost Perfect. As I say, they were almost there, and they have time to get better. Maybe with the DLC they'll be top tier. But as it sits now, the bugs did hamper it. And for that reason I can't put it in the peak. So this is our tier list, guys. If you want to let me know your thoughts on any of the placements, please do. We're currently aiming for 300 subscribers on the main channel. We hit 200 very quickly, so let's see how quickly we can hit 300. That's the goal right now for the year. Remember to like the video and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Hit the notification bell so you are notified whenever I upload. In the description you will find my TikTok, my Instagram, my Twitter, and our new Jam Shorts channel. As you may have noticed, over the past month I've been experimenting with YouTube Shorts, and I've decided to move them onto their own channel. If you enjoyed the shorts and you came from them and you want to keep watching shorts as well as the main channel, in the description or on my channel page you'll be able to find the link. Thank you so much for watching. This has been my tier list, my subjective tier list, may I add, of the Pokemon games in the main series. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.